Amazing revelation. 72 hours after a life-changing bite, discover the transformative antidote. Sarah's heart raced as she knelt beside Jake, the small gym buzzing with the chatter of teenagers lost in their own worlds. She saw the glimmer in his eye, the kind that appeared only when he was surrounded by a topic he loved: science. Today was supposed to be exciting, a chance for him to show everyone what he was made of. Yet amidst the hopeful atmosphere, a small dread gnawed at her insides. What if he succeeded, and the world rejected him like it had before? Jake's awkward brilliance branded him as different, a label he wore like a thorn-covered crown. She couldn't shake the memories of last year, whispering fights with teachers who rolled their eyes at his questions, the derisive laughter from classmates refusing to see the genius hiding behind his glasses. Each time he slumped his shoulders, she felt her own failures as a mother. How could she nurture a boy meant for greatness in a town that didn't understand him? "Mom, look!" Jake shouted, holding up an exotic insect he'd found in the display case, oblivious to the concerned glances of the unfazed adults around them. An unasked question hovered in the air. Why couldn't he just be normal? Each day was a balancing act. Her exhausting shifts at the nursing home, the steady stream of bills suffocating their finances, real worries stalking her. Was it asking too much for some peace? Just then, as fate would have it, the insect bit him. He staggered back, surprise etched across his face. "Are you okay?" Panic surged through her, but he waved her off and returned to the makeshift lab. The relentless pressure of being financially responsible and emotionally supportive collided violently in Sarah's mind. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Days passed and her son was transformed, exploding with knowledge and confidence, grasping complex equations like they were mere riddles. The brilliance made her proud, yet terrified. What if this change was fleeting? What if it hurt him in ways she couldn't comprehend? This newfound ambition turned daunting. He talked about applying to a prestigious university, one she had only ever seen in glossy pamphlets. The thought of him pursuing greatness lit a fierce fire, but the shadows of her estranged father loomed. His reappearance in their lives sent her spiraling into a pit of uncertainty. How could she let the man who had hurt her reemerge now, just as Jake was embarking on his journey? The father who once cast doubts over her abilities now wanted to mold her son's future. With each passing day, Sarah battled her growing resentment and a desperate desire to protect Jake from repeating her past failures. Ultimately, as Jake pushed for independence, she was left standing on shifting sands, torn between the crumbling ground of her own experiences and hopes for her son's soaring potential. And as Jake unraveled family secrets that threatened to pull them apart, Sarah was faced with the harrowing truth: they might not weather the storm together. Would they find the courage to confront the truth, or would the tide of their past sink them both? As the days stretched into a tense week, Sarah found herself caught in a web of worry and confusion. Every time she caught a glimpse of Jake, the brilliance in his eyes nearly left her breathless, but it also steeped her heart in dread. He sat in his room, buried under textbooks, swathes of equations sprawled on the whiteboard, where once only drawings of fantastical creatures resided. The transformation had been slow but inevitable, like the surge before a storm. At work, the familiar plates clattering in the nursing home kitchen did little to distract her from an unsettling reality. Chit-chat with the residents had dulled. The laughter that usually filled the air felt like a fragile glass ornament, waiting to shatter in her grasp. Her colleagues pressed her for social interactions, each probing question about her son, a wince of pride and a twinge of panic coursing through her, which turned her conversations into a facade she struggled to maintain. "Have you thought about his college applications yet?" Jen, her co-worker, asked one day, her casual tone weighty with expectation. Sarah felt suffocated by the question. We have time," Sarah managed, but dread loomed over her like a thunderhead. With financial worries suffocating them, could she support Jake's ambitions? The moment of truth hovered like a specter, taunting her as she illed needle-like truths. Back home, when she finally approached Jake about his plans, he beamed, sharing stories of a science fair he wanted to enter with a project on renewable energy. It sounded ambitious, perhaps too ambitious, but her heart split. She wanted to encourage him, to fan the flames of his passion. Yet, can a butterfly emerge from chains of friction? "Jake, are you sure you want to do this?" she asked, her voice faltering. She noticed a flicker behind his eyes, one of determination. "Mom, this could lead to fantastic opportunities. I need to take the leap." Words that rang of courage to her struggling spirit also echoed fears buried deep within. What if this leap led him into the path of disappointment? Realizing he needed her unwavering support, she wrestled with the urge to gather him close, to bundle him up inside her doubts, convincing herself it was for his protection. But what she truly feared was losing him, not just to success, but to his own strengths. As if hearing her inner turmoil, Jake pushed back. "You have to believe in me, Mom. I'm not that little boy anymore." The intensity of his resolve ignited something within her, a flicker of defiance against her own insecurities. Later that night, Sarah lay awake, questioning her choices, plagued by the shadows of her father's influence creeping back into her life. Could she confront him? Could she protect Jake from the chains that bound her? Each question collided like pinballs in her mind, leaving her restless. Suddenly, a radical thought struck her. What if she met her father head-on, demanded he stay away from Jake? But the churning in her gut told her this confrontation could either liberate or imprison them all, a choice that would unravel history or bind it deeper with regret. With the clock silently ticking, she felt a surge of decision brewing. Perhaps she could finally take control, not just of her life, but of the legacy she would pass down to her son. The moment of confrontation drew near. Would she break the cycle of fear, or would she fold under the weight of a past she hoped to outrun? There was only one way to find out. As the night deepened, resolutions hung precariously in the air, waiting for dawn to either usher in clarity or plunge her deeper into chaos. Dawn arrived, its gentle light seeping through the curtains, but Sarah felt the weight of the day pressing down on her chest. Every tick of the clock felt like a countdown, each moment carrying her closer to an inevitable confrontation that thrummed in her veins. She slipped out of bed, restless, the familiar creaks of the floor betraying her movements. With every deliberate step, she became acutely aware of the thin line drawn between her past and the future she envisioned for Jake. A rhythmic association developed in her mind. The way the sunlight caught the dust particles swirling in the air reminded her of the nebulous nature of life choices. Each one was a dance between darkness and light, between following the shadows of her father's overbearing presence and embracing the vibrant potential within herself and her son. Sarah brewed coffee, its aroma enveloping her, yet failing to ease the tumult of emotions swirling inside her. She focused on the boiling water, finding it almost therapeutic to watch the bubbles rise, reminding her that, like them, her worries could either rise or dissipate. With each ounce of coffee poured, her burgeoning resolve began to feel more tangible, more accomplishable. She would not let fear dictate the terms of her relationship with Jake. After breakfast, Jake emerged from his room, hair disheveled, but eyes gleaming with excitement. It was a stark reminder of the young boy who once filled their home with dreams and energy, a reminder that he wasn't just her son, but a remarkable young man ready to chase his aspirations. "Mom, I have some ideas for the project." He burst into the kitchen, holding a stack of papers. As he began explaining his vision for the science fair, solar panels powering a mini greenhouse, her heart swelled with pride. Yet the doubt crept back in as she grasped how monumental such a leap was. "Jake, what happens if it doesn't work out?" she ventured tentatively, grappling to maintain a veneer of calm. "Then I'll learn from it," he answered, unwavering. "Isn't that how it works?" It wasn't just a response, it was an awakening for Sarah. Tears threatened to spill as she confronted the essence of his words. Could she adopt the same philosophy? Each failed confrontation with her father, each circumstance that had flown out of her control, had constellated to this very juncture. She had the chance to redefine her legacy, to coax out of the shadows not just fear, but confidence in herself and her ability to safeguard Jake. It was with a newfound sense of purpose that she inhaled deeply, savoring the resolve that now coursed through her. She looked to Jake, seeing him not just as a reflection of herself, but as an independent force, capable of greatness. Only by dismantling her fears could she truly embrace his burgeoning ambitions. In that moment, a plan crystallized in her mind, one where she would confront her father armed with the conviction to protect her son's dreams. It wouldn't be easy, but the thought of holding on to her strengths while letting go of paralyzing fear ignited a flame of hope within her. With a steadying breath, she glanced at the clock. Time was fleeting, and the moment was drawing near. What would she say to her father? Would she finally break free from the chains of his influence? As she contemplated the inevitable, a message flashed on her phone, a shocking revelation that could alter everything. The weight of the discovery threatened to pull her back into turmoil, but deep down, she understood that she had already made strides towards confronting her past. What awaited her would either connect the dots of her present or set her spiraling anew. The moment to take action had arrived. Would she grasp this lifeline or allow the past to ensnare her once more? In that swirling uncertainty lay her next leap. Sarah glanced at her phone, her heart racing as she read the message. A name, intertwined with memories both good and painful, ignited a cascade of thoughts. This wasn't merely a text. It was a thread pulling her back into a past she had tried so hard to escape. It was her father, reaching out after months of silence. A tight knot of anxiety gripped her as she processed what this could mean. She felt the heat of her coffee cup against her palms as if it were a lifeline. The moment was delicate, yet the stakes were monumental. More than just the confrontation with her father loomed in the air. It was her journey towards reclamation, both for herself and Jake. Jake, oblivious to her internal turmoil, continued to chatter about his project aspirations. His voice grounded her, reminding her of the promise she made to dismantle the toxic legacy handed down by her father. Still, the prospect of interacting with him was daunting. It felt like stepping onto a battlefield with an enemy who knew all her weaknesses. But wasn't fear exactly what had held her back all these years? Taking a deep breath, she let Jake's youthful enthusiasm wash over her like a balm. This was it, her opportunity to break the cycle. "Mom, are you okay?" Jake's voice cut through her reverie, his brow furrowed with concern. Caught off guard, she forced a smile. "Yeah, just thinking about a few things I need to clear up. Can you show me those diagrams you drew?" As he spread the papers across the kitchen table, detailing his innovative concepts, Sarah marveled at the potential in his eyes, the light of eagerness. With each sketch, she envisioned alternatives for her life unfolding alongside Jake's ambitions. Would she let the reminder of her father's shadow dim their bright future? When Jake tapped her shoulder, snapping her back to reality, she took a moment to study him closely. "You know," she began tentatively, "sometimes people we love can surprise us. They might not always behave how we expect." Jake looked up, confusion mingling with curiosity. "Is that about non-science stuff, Mom? Like family?" "Yes," she replied, weighing her words. "Family can be complicated. Sometimes they push us and it can be hard, but sometimes they can also change." As Jake processed her words, she felt a whisper of hope. Their foundation could be different. She could lead by example, exploring the complexities of familial ties without being consumed by them. In the pit of her stomach arose a pang of resolve. "Listen, I have to think of a way to tell you about some old family stuff that might come up soon. It might get a little messy." Jake moved closer, his eyes widening with interest. "Are you going to be okay? Together, right?" His earnest concern flooded her with warmth, and with it, a cascade of determination emerged. She would be okay. Together, they would navigate the tumultuous waters of their family history. The doorbell rang suddenly, jolting her from her thoughts. An unexpected visitor, perhaps? "Mom, are you going to answer it?" Jake asked, already racing towards the door. With a quick glance at her phone, she steeled herself. Whoever stood on the other side could change everything again, catapulting them further toward healing or deeper into confusion. She trudged forward, feeling the heaviness of her heart battling the sweet ache of anticipation. The moment she swung the door open, reality met her gaze. It was her father. The familiar, yet alien figure stood framed by the sunlight, throwing everything within her into disarray. Her life's fears punched her in the gut, but nestled within that punch was a rebellious rush of empowering rage. This was it. The confrontation she'd spent years anticipating had arrived. The real question now was how she would respond. Would she allow the past to continue to dictate how she raised Jake? All her development had led her to this singular flashpoint. Her future hung in the balance. "Dad," she said, voice resolute, "we need to talk." In that moment, the tension coiled tightly around her resolve and dread. As the door creaked wider, uncertainty echoed heavily in her chest, a reminder of the leap she needed to take. The next step she took could redefine everything. Sarah's mind raced as the door stood ajar, the sunlight casting sharp angles across her father's familiar features. How many times had she replayed this moment in her mind, scripting a narrative where courage overpowered fear? Yet as he stood there, the muscle memory of dread clutched at her. "Can we talk?" he repeated, eyes glistening with what might have been regret. His voice, deep yet hesitant, forced her to glimpse the man who had once seemed larger than life, now reduced by time and circumstance. But this was no longer the little girl waiting for a father's approval. She'd grown, hardened by life's realities. "I'm not sure what you want, but I know it's been a long time," she replied, her tone steady despite the tumult beneath. She stepped back, holding the door wide, inviting him into a space where the air felt thick with unspoken words. His gaze wandered across the walls of her small home, a place filled with memories made since she'd moved away. It struck her that he was observing her life not just as a daughter, but as a woman she had become. "Your mother always said you'd create something extraordinary," he started awkwardly, his hands fidgeting by his side. "I see it now." His compliment should have sent warmth through her, a nod of validation, but it only intensified her nervous energy. She'd spent years disentangling herself from his influence, fighting against the stereotypes he embodied. Failure, disappointment, abandonment. Those notions had nearly suffocated her self-worth in younger days. But she was not here to receive accolades, she was here to confront the past. "Why are you here?" she said, her voice layered with authority. "You left Dad, you chose to walk away, I made a life without you." The weight of her words landed heavily. She was prepared to meet whatever excuse he prepared. She'd rehearsed it thousands of times. Her justifications nearly have been rehearsed in the mirror. Yet as she waited for his response, she felt a flicker of uncertainty. "I can't change what I did," he sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose as if the guilt physically pained him. "I didn't know how to be a father then. I barely knew how to be a man, but I want to try now." Try. The simplicity of the word ignited a flame of skepticism within her. Try was a word that had failed her in her childhood, yet it pulled at the tight coil of hope buried deep within her heart, conflicting with the instincts she had developed over years of self-preservation. "I'm not the only one you hurt," she retorted, defensive, thinking of Jake who had turned their table into a canvas of dreams. If this were to evolve into any kind of honest dialogue, she needed to dismantle the facade of reconciliation he presented. "I know," he replied, his gaze dropping. "I'm here because I'd like to know your son. I want to be part of his life, if he'd allow me." The declaration settled between them, heavy and unresolved. Did he even comprehend the sheer magnitude of that request? Did he realize the implications on her own rebuilding efforts? "No," she said flatly, surprised by her own conviction. "You don't get to choose now. You need to prove you can be trusted." An exhale punctuated the silence. The tables of their relationship had shifted, but the layers of hurt remained, intertwined like an unyielding knot. For Sarah, the challenge had now morphed into a clear choice. She could confront this suffocating past, or allow it to consume her future. "Prove it," she murmured, a sense of daring settling into her tone. "You say you want to try? Start by understanding the damage you've done." His nod was tentative, but something in her tightened resolve sparked the desire to reclaim the narrative. She remained poised at the precipice of a new beginning. This needed to be discussed despite the pain it would surface, for nothing could flourish unless the roots were unearthed. As she stepped backward, her father paused, only half entering her sanctuary. "What do I have to do?" The question hung bracingly. What a complicated crossroads they stood upon. There were risks she hadn't considered, her own vulnerability, Jake's complexity. Yet as she faced him, she knew that if they were to advance, mutual understanding would need to bloom through honesty. Let's start by talking about the past, she replied, voice steady but carrying an undercurrent of fear. A flicker of apprehension crossed his face, echoing the chasm they faced as their lives collided once more. This was just the beginning. The storm of their history loomed, a gradual climb toward reclamation yet to be unveiled. As they sat, the air thick with anticipation, Sarah suddenly wondered if she could take the reins of this narrative. Would it open doors or shatter them completely? The next hour would reveal the fragile architecture of their relationship anew. As Sarah settled into the worn armchair facing her father, she grappled with the strange sense of being both a child and an adult. The past loomed behind her like a ghost, a reminder of the fractures that shaped her understanding of family. Yet, a new assertiveness bubbled beneath the surface. This was her opportunity to dismantle years of misunderstanding and pain. Her father fidgeted, but maintained a cautious eye contact. The tentative nature of his demeanor reminded her of the day she had first stepped into her classroom as a teacher. The anxiety and anticipation of molding young minds had felt insurmountable then, just as this moment felt about exposing the delicate truths of their shared history. Both worlds required a mastery of vulnerability. "Let's begin with the night you left," she proposed, her voice steady but tinged with an edged clarity. "What was going through your mind when you made that choice?" His face fell, and she caught a glimpse of the boy he once was, lost and overwhelmed. "I was scared," he said quietly, "overwhelmed. I thought I was doing what was best for you and your mother. I didn't see it then, but I was just running away." "Running away," she repeated, the phrase catching like thorns in her throat. "It didn't just affect you, it carved a path of loneliness through my life." Her father shifted uncomfortably, the weight of her words pressing upon him, but it was necessary. Each revelation could inch them closer to understanding or push them further apart. "I didn't realize how deeply that abandonment would seep into your life," he admitted, his voice cracking under the pressure of his own remorse. "I thought that if I disappeared, it would minimize the conflict, but I only caused more damage. I can't let that happen with Jake. I refuse to let history repeat itself," she asserted, a fierce protectiveness igniting within her. "You want to be part of his life? You need to grasp the weight of your neglect." His expression reflected battle and resolve. "What do you want from me, Sarah? An apology? I can offer that." "No," she interrupted. "Apologies mean nothing without action. I need to see you willing to learn, to understand what empathy truly means." A vivid memory flashed through her mind. The way Jake would dote on his toys, treating them with a care she hadn't received. Such simple love was the foundation she needed to build for him, and she would not let her father rot those values with hollow words. "Empathy is more than words," she pressed on, her voice crisp and commanding. "I want you to sit down with me and understand who I've become while you were away. Can you face the truth despite its ugliness?" He nodded slowly, resignation weaving through his features. There was no longer space for denial. They had cracked open the shell that housed their shared agony. With each heartbeat, a flicker of connection ignited a sense of hope within her. Maybe they could reconstruct something from the ruins. "Tell me what you've learned about being a father through your mistakes," she invited, choosing to bring him into the brightness of her experience rather than punish him in shadows of sorrow. "You have to be present," he began tentatively. "You have to care, truly care about everything your child experiences. I've realized what it means to be part of a life, and I've failed at it spectacularly. That realization alone has broken me." "It's a start," she breathed, threading her fingers together in a show of cautious optimism. "But it's not enough. You need to invest in this, in me, in Jake. You need to work on proving that you can stand up, not just for yourself, but for everyone else." As he engaged with her words, she recognized the changing dynamics. The delicate web of accountability was stretching, offering them the potential to mend not just their relationship, but also her view of fatherhood itself. Yet beneath her newly discovered confidence lay an undercurrent of fear. Would he falter and reveal his shortcomings when tested against the unwavering innocence of her son? "Can you commit?" she asked, her eyes searching his. "Can you promise to show up, to take this seriously if you really want to be part of Jake's life?" "I promise," he declared, the sincerity in his voice shocking both of them. But as the promise settled between them, she couldn't shake the notion that promises were easy to make and difficult to uphold. The shadows of their history danced around the edges, and a thick tension swathed her heart. In contemplating the leap she had taken, she wondered whether a father's love could unfurl anew from darkness. This was just beginning, but within the uncertainty loomed the most pivotal question. Could they really rebuild what had been lost? As her gaze lingered on the figure before her, she knew the stakes had risen dramatically. The challenge of proving trust was merely the first hurdle. There were larger dragons to face, and she would need every ounce of strength she had. What would happen next if he stumbled? If the light at the end of the tunnel proved illusory? The moment felt dangerously fragile, teetering on the edge of revelation and chaos alike. With the shadows looming behind her, Sarah could only hope to navigate faithfully in the direction of healing. But first, she had to unravel the truth she held inside, the truths about forgiveness and the daunting truth of what it meant to love unconditionally. The air grew tense as Sarah processed her father's promise, a promise which felt simultaneously like a lifeline and a noose. She watched him, waiting for a sign of sincerity that wasn't cloaked in sorrow or regret. This was not just about words. This was a foundational shift in their relationship, and with each passing moment, the stakes compounded. What will that look like? She pressed, needing more than the empty assurances that had become all too familiar. What actions will you take to show me you mean it? He hesitated, the silence stretching between them like a chasm filled with unspoken fears. Maybe I could start by visiting more often, perhaps help out with Jake, get involved in his life, he stammered, but his voice lacked conviction. Help out? She echoed, her skepticism surfacing. She felt a flash of anger, not just for him, but for herself, for the years she had carried the weight of his absence. It's not enough to just show up. I need you to truly engage, to focus on him, not just fulfill an obligation. The vulnerability she had commanded moments before felt fragile now, and the room closed in on her. Would their progress be marred by a father who still didn't understand the essence of presence? This fear ignited an urgency within her. She couldn't let their fragile connection falter at the onset of its promise. What does involvement mean to you? She asked sharply, challenging him to dig deeper. To sit on the sidelines and watch him grow? Or to be the one doing the growing with him? His eyes clouded with confusion, and she saw him grasp for answers, perhaps grappling not only with her question, but with his own identity as a father. I want to be a part of it, Sarah. I want to understand Jake, the way he learns, the way he thinks. Then you have to commit to changing, not just for him, but for yourself. Do you see that? Change isn't just about action, it's about understanding who you are in the process. These realizations felt like the blade of a scalpel, probing at old wounds, but in her heart, she felt a flicker of optimism. She wanted him to see the openness and vulnerability he would need to embrace if he truly intended to forge a new relationship with Jake. Time passed, marked only by the whispering of the clock on the wall, drawing her back again to her own doubts. Could she teach her father empathy? Would she also need to confront her assumptions about their relationship? So many times in the classroom, she had encountered students who didn't understand a concept until the connection clicked for them. What if her father needed the same kind of awakening? Despite the swirl of her emotions, she steadied her breathing, grounding herself. Perhaps we should go to the park tomorrow. You can see Jake in his environment, where he plays, learns, and laughs. That's where you might find a path to start understanding him. We can talk, interact, observe. He nodded slowly, but the uncertainty in his eyes lingered, swirling with the fear of making mistakes yet again. Sarah, he began, his voice lower now. What if I fail? There it was, the acknowledgement of possibility once dismissed. Then you try again, she replied. You do better. You handle it with grace, humility, and honesty. That's how you will rebuild, not through grand gestures, but through everyday moments filled with intention. A long silence hung between them, charged with unspoken promises and an inkling of new foundation. It was a conscious choice on his part to step forward, but she knew, confronted with their history, he might stumble upon their next encounter. As they prepared to part ways, the realization dawned on her that true relationships require continued effort beyond mere discussions. She felt a determination anchoring her, each step a calculated move toward healing. Back in her car, Sarah flipped her phone to check the time, the day's events weighing heavily within her. She still had to figure out how to deal with her own feelings of resistance. The sirens of doubt were never far behind. What if her father didn't show up just as he had before? With urgency, she needed to write down her fears, her goals for the next day's encounter, analyzing every angle. Was she ready for this? And, more importantly, was he? Just before leaving the parking lot, she pulled out her journal. In that quiet moment, with pen in hand, she realized, could this journey mean not just mending the past, but perhaps also leading her towards self-discovery? Was it possible they could become more than who they once were? The questions churned in her mind, blocking out the noise of her surroundings. Each one pressed louder than the last, heightening her anxiety. Could she trust in their potential, or was she merely setting herself up once again for heartache? The looming uncertainty hung over her like a storm cloud, preparing her for the challenge awaiting them both. As the sun began to set, she drove home, steeling herself for what lay ahead. Would this be a new beginning, or a cruel reminder of abandonment? The moment of vulnerability awaited, and the promise of change felt heavy upon her chest. She could uncover strength or be consumed by the fragility of hope. In preparing for the unraveling of truth, she wondered what lengths she would go to in proving her father's commitment to action and change. And yet, the question remained. When trust is still so easily fractured, could she really embrace a renewed bond? Or would the shadows of the past forever taint their efforts? Each heartbeat echoed with the possibility of transformation, but would they both be ready for the outcome? The morning light filtered through the blinds, cascading into Sarah's room, illuminating not just her surroundings, but the restless thoughts swirling in her mind. Today was the day. The reflection of her father's uncertainty danced hauntingly in her memory. She took a deep breath, pushing down the intermittent wave of anxiety that threatened to suffocate her resolve. This wasn't merely a meeting. This was a pivotal moment, a potential resurgence of something that had long been stagnant. As she gathered her things, her journal lay open on her nightstand, filled with her hopes and fears for the day ahead. Each entry felt like a stepping stone, but she wrestled with the inherent question. Could she really drive this change? Could she not just facilitate her father's growth but encourage her own? The park shimmered with early morning dew as she arrived. Children's laughter echoed around her, mingling with the rustling leaves, a stark contrast to the growing storm in her heart. She arrived early to center herself, to meditate on her purpose for this encounter. Solidarity with Jake, forging pathways toward healing with her father, all hinged on the sincerity of today. Moments passed, each heartbeat punctuating her patience. When she spotted her father entering the park, she felt every muscle in her body tense. He approached with an air of tentative optimism, which quickly melted into a mask of concern. "Hey, Sarah," he said, a sheepish smile attempting to break the layers of uncertainty. "Where do you want to start?" "Why don't you join Jake over there?" she suggested, nodding toward the swings where her son was immersed in a game of pretend with two friends. "Just watch him for a while, see how he interacts." He hesitated, fear flickering across his features. "What if I don't know what to say or do?" "That's the point," she pushed gently. "Just observe. Sometimes presence speaks louder than words." She noticed tears prick at his eyes as he moved toward Jake. The resolve she once felt wavered, replaced by an unfamiliar compassion. For years she had been the one carrying their family's emotional burdens, and witnessing his struggle opened a floodgate of emotions, understanding, and an unexpected sorrow for the boy who had been her father. Her father stood on the fringe, a statue against the laughter and play, straining to understand this new dynamic. Watching him try to connect felt like watching a fledgling bird flutter from the nest, unsure of whether it could fly. Unbeknownst to him, Sarah scrutinized his every movement, trying to discern his learning curve, the awkward steps of a man grappling with vulnerability. Finally, he crouched down beside Jake, who was unaware of the weight their interaction held. "Hey, buddy," her father ventured, voice tentative yet curious. "What are you playing?" A pause stretched out, and Sarah held her breath. The silence between them was palpable. She could almost feel the visible thread weaving the past with the present, hope with fear. Jake looked up, flare of surprise illuminating his face. "I'm a pirate!" he exclaimed, arms flailing as he cast imaginary lines into the sea. Frozen in his newfound world, Jake hardly seemed to register the monumental shift for his grandfather. "Cool! Can I be a pirate too?" The words escaped her father's lips with a newfound eagerness, and Sarah's heart surged with a strange blend of joy and concern. Encouraged, Jake navigated their mock adventure. Sarah watched as her father transformed. He was no longer a distant figure, but an active participant, albeit one still finding his balance. Each smile exchanged became a quiet affirmation of potential reconciliation, but beneath the surface, doubt simmered. Eventually, she moved close enough to hear their laughter ripple across the surface of what had once been a fractured bond. But as they played, the questions mirrored back. Was her father really here, navigating this space? Or was he simply masking his deeper fears? Just when she began to relax, a shadow cast over her optimism. What if he withdrew again? The moments of connection felt insubstantial, ephemeral, wavering on the edge of permanence. "Sarah," her father called, breaking her reverie, looking between her and Jake. "Can I take him out for ice cream later?" A sudden jolt of apprehension raced through her. Ice cream? Was this a genuine gesture or an extension of his tendency to flounder in heavy waters, drowning faith with impulsiveness? "Are you sure that's a good idea?" she asked, drawing back slightly, conscious that risk was a necessary part of growth, but wary of being too trusting. He smiled, a blend of hope and fear. "Please, I want to make a special memory." The urge to protect herself and Jake clawed at her. Could he be trusted with this? But as she looked at him, something akin to determination glimmered in her father's eyes. Maybe, just maybe, this was more than a fleeting moment. A gentle yet firm resolve flickered within her. "Okay," she finally said, voice steady. "But let's communicate every step of the way." The silence that followed was heavy, filled with the weight of something unspoken. As Sarah watched her father and son embark on their quest for ice cream, she realized that today could mark the beginning of something profound, both for them and for herself. She was not merely an observer, she was a participant, navigating her evolution alongside them in the most chaotic and beautiful way. But as they walked away, Sarah's heart churned with the unquenched complexity of emotions. Was she truly prepared to embrace the trust that could shatter at any moment? And what lengths might she have to go in order to safeguard this fragile rekindling? As Sarah watched her father and Jake disappear into the brightening morning, a potent mix of apprehension and flickering hope surged within her. The ice cream outing wasn't just a simple gesture, it represented a fragile thread of possibility woven between generations, and she feared it might snap under the weight of history. Her commitment to be supportive nagged at her, its implications blooming like wildflowers amidst the weeds of doubt. Alone in the park, the soundscape shifted. The laughter of children faded into the background, replaced by the reflective whispers of her own thoughts. Could this really be a stepping stone rather than a stumbling block? She had spent so many years holding her family together, often at the cost of her own emotional well-being. This was her chance to transform them all, her father, her son, and herself. But she couldn't ignore the fear that this step toward healing would lead to further disappointment. As she walked back toward the swings, the ground felt uneven beneath her feet. She paused, glancing at the empty seat beside her son, considering just how fragile this arrangement with her father might be. Each interaction was another potential fracture, yet the moment she seemed to step back, it would surely create a chasm. She could feel the tension coursing through her veins, a quiet urgency to protect Jake, and, at the same time, a longing to believe in her father's capacity for change. Contemplating the ice cream excursion, Sarah resolved that she needed a clear plan. She remembered conversations with friends who had faced similar trials with their parents and how they learned to navigate these treacherous waters. The discussion often revolved around setting boundaries, teaching others what was acceptable and what wasn't without simply fortifying walls. Empowered by this knowledge, she decided to write down her thoughts and feelings as a way to clarify her intentions. Returning home, she snatched up her journal. Its pages had witnessed her evolution, filled with fears and aspirations alike. She opened to a fresh page, thoughts flowing through her mind, bubbling to the surface. To foster growth, I must be clear about what I need from this relationship. Trust will come in stages. Like gentle tides, it needs time to swell. She detailed her observations from the park, her father's fumbling attempts at interaction, the way Jake's face lit up with excitement. She found herself transcribing not just events, but emotions, creating a roadmap out of anxiety. Writing was her anchor, a means of bridging the tumultuous waters of doubt and clarity. Just as she was closing her journal, a notification pinged on her phone, an invitation from her father to join them later for ice cream. He had sent a video of Jake, proudly displaying a sticky mess of chocolate around his mouth, laughing at the camera. The delight in her son's voice stirred something deep within her. It was adorable, but also an anticipatory reminder of the vulnerability she had stepped into. Should she accept this invitation? The decision spiraled in her mind. Participation meant embracing the uncertainty, diving deeper into this complex reconciliation process. Would she continue to advocate for boundaries while remaining open to her father's tentative overtures? The thought of dependency and betrayal entangled in her heart. Her resolve strengthened, and she tapped a response. What time and where? Let's discuss this further when we meet. I want everyone to feel comfortable. A step forward, albeit a cautious one. Later that evening, sitting at the dinner table, she pondered her options. The ice cream outing was only a few hours away. Jake was exuberant, unaware of the intricacies between his mother and grandfather, swirling with excitement about the day's adventure. She smiled, absorbing his energy, but trepidation lingered. Would her father be sober? Would he keep his promises? As tension ricocheted within her, questions of trust loomed large. What would she do if her father struggled again? Yet an ember of faith flickered in her chest, igniting a belief in possibilities she had once dismissed. Maybe this time would be different. With every ounce of her being, she was determined to help reshape not just her father's narrative but her own. The hardest steps often herald the most profound revelations. Yet, was she truly brave enough to herald her own transformation? Just as uncertainty washed over her like an oncoming tide, Sarah's phone chimed once more. It was a reminder of the meeting, but it also bore an unexpected weight. A message from her mother. I want to talk. The unsteady feeling in her stomach clenched tighter. Could her mother be the missing piece in their painful puzzle, or another complication altogether? The moment of confrontation loomed ahead, opening a doorway to both potentials and peril. Sarah's heart raced as time moved closer to the moment Jake would return from his outing with his grandfather. She sat at the kitchen table, pushing her uneaten dinner aside, her attention firmly fixed on the clock. Each tick echoed with the weight of uncertainty, a reminder of the scars that had been carved into her family over the years. The door swung open, revealing Jake, bubbling with delight, his hair tousled and face smeared with chocolate. Mom, you won't believe it. Grandpa let me choose the biggest ice cream sundae, he exclaimed, his voice brightening the dimly lit room. Simultaneously, the door creaked again, and her father stepped in, looking remarkably reconciled. It sparked a blend of emotions within her. Hope mingled with skepticism. He wanted to be part of Jake's life, but could he truly learn? Hey, Sarah, he greeted softly, his demeanor radiating an unfamiliar warmth. She found her gaze drifting back to Jake, who was recounting every delectable detail of his sundae. How could she protect her son while allowing him this burgeoning relationship with his grandfather? Did you have fun? She asked kindly, trying to mask her own apprehension. Yeah, he even let me pick the toppings, Jake chirped, unaware of the subtle tension brewing between them. Looks like you made some great memories, she commented, forcing a smile while glancing at her father. He eased onto the chair, the weight of their past pressing down upon them, but he appeared ready. Not just to be present, but to engage. Can we talk, Sarah? He ventured, his voice steady but cautious. The moment felt monumental. It was the first decision point on their fragmented path. Yes, we should, she nodded, fingers tightening around her journal, a lifeline amidst the emotional tide. In those next few minutes, as Jake occupied himself with his leftover dessert, she and her father discussed the outing. He expressed genuine enthusiasm for what he learned. How to navigate childish excitement, how to connect in small, meaningful ways. Yet beneath those words, doubt festered. What if he couldn't sustain this involvement? She had seen too many false starts in her life. Your progress with Jake has been promising, she began, steering the conversation deeper. But you must understand, it can't just be about fun. Please recognize the importance of staying engaged, not only during playtime but through the ups and downs of his life." Her father nodded solemnly, sincerity shining in his eyes. "I get that now. With you, it wasn't just about being a dad when it was easy. I should have been there during your tough times too." His acknowledgement resonated within her, momentarily blunting her apprehension. Still, the anger and hurt of their shared history weighed heavy on her heart. "It requires consistency and emotional presence, Dad. Boundaries must be set. I can't let you backslide into old patterns." "I promise I can be trusted," he said, his voice cracking, revealing an undercurrent of vulnerability she hadn't recognized before. The enormity of this declaration hung in the air, entwined with their tumultuous past. "Do you understand why that's hard for me to believe?" she pushed gently, needing him to confront the gravity of what he was asking of her. "You walked away before. You brought pain into my life and it felt like you never looked back. I know, and I regret it deeply." His voice trembled with emotion as he continued, "But I want this, for you, for Jake, to work through this together, step by step." With each passing moment, Sarah found herself wrestling with her instincts. She had always been the one to carry the emotional burdens. Could she allow herself the grace to trust again? The hesitance hung like a specter, whispering caution, but the flicker of hope in her heart ignited a deeper yearning for genuine connection among them. "I want to believe you," Sarah admitted softly, her heart thundering in her chest. "But it takes time and patience. I need to see you make this a priority in Jake's life, and by extension in mine too." His eyes darkened, the weight of her words reflecting back at her, and something shifted in the environment, a fragile realization that perhaps together they could truly navigate this redefining relationship. He reached out tentatively, placing his hand over hers. "I'm ready to do whatever it takes. I want to be a constant, not just a visitor." The candidness of his sincerity washed over her like a soft quilt, providing comfort amid uncertainty. Perhaps he had stepped into this role with the desire to change, and today might mark a pivotal turn for them both. The moment stretched out, filled with unspoken understanding, her father finally beginning to realize the importance of showing up authentically. Maybe, just maybe, they could forge a new path. Later that evening, as Jake climbed into bed, Sarah tucked him in gently. His eyes sparkled with the excitement of the day, and she couldn't help but wish for that same light to illuminate her own journey. Turning off the light, she paused at the door, whispering softly, "Dream big, okay?" "Good night, Mom," Jake replied, grinning widely. "Can we have ice cream again tomorrow?" Her heart swelled at the uncomplicated joy of his innocence and enthusiasm, and as she closed the door behind her, she felt a sudden urge to pen down her thoughts swirling within her. Sitting down with her journal, words flowed freely, intertwining her experiences with hope for the future. Today marked a day where she actively chose to believe in not just second chances, but third and fourth ones too. They were all deserving of transformation, including her father. With every stroke of the pen, she felt the emotional burdens of the past releasing their grip on her spirit, replaced with the possibility of renewal. As twilight settled outside, Sarah's resolve crystallized. Their journey wouldn't be easy, but it held the promise of joy, fulfillment, and perhaps outright transformation. The shadows of doubt still lingered, but through navigating those murky waters together, they might uncover the treasures of their union after all. In that quiet moment, transformative potential shimmered lightly on the surface of her thoughts, and she understood that in opening herself up once more, she could also thrive. This was just the beginning, but she had taken a monumental step, and as she breathed in the stillness surrounding her, the honest anticipation of embracing both joy and pain felt like an absolute victory. Now was the time to rise above the past, to rediscover family, and to claim the narrative she had long yearned for. It was this conviction, which would guide her through every uncertain moment ahead, no matter how daunting, that signaled their family was on the brink of something truly remarkable. This was not merely about the struggle against the past, but a leap into the future, an embrace of patience, healing, and heartfelt connection. With a steady hand, she wrote the date down, closing the chapter on solitude, and stepping boldly into a world where transformation reigned. As the last words faintly echoed against the page, she felt a deep, triumphant sigh escape her lips. It was time to reclaim her story, and she was resolute to forge a brighter path ahead, together. The moment of truth had arrived, and they were ready to face it all. Nothing could hold her back now. You need to subscribe now to catch the next exclusive emotional stories that will touch your heart and inspire you to transform your life. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, ensuring this story reaches more people just like you who need to hear this powerful message. Comment your reactions and theories about today's emotional journey. Share what you think will happen next. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion, helping them realize that change and connection are possible in their lives too. Don't wait even one more second. Your support matters.